So I'm going to call to order the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Budget Committee meeting. And we'll start with introductions. And Eric, we'll start with you.
I'm Eric Shawn.
Paul Savas, Clackamas County Commissioner.
Lynn Fisher.
Ken Humberston, Clackamas County Vice Chair.
Dick Shook.
Jim Bernard, Clackamas County Chair.
Macy Gast, part of the Budget Committee.
Martha Schrader, County Commissioner.
Stephanie Kurzenhauser.
Sonia Fisher, County Commissioner.
Don Krupp, County Administrator and District Administrator.
Diane Padilla, Budget Manager.
Okay, with that, I'm going to call for an election of Chair and Secretary. Is there a motion to elect a chair?
I nominate Dick Shook.
Is there a second?
I'll second the nomination.
It's been moved and seconded that we elect Dick Shook as chair. Any other nominations? All those in favor of Dick Shook, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none. Here's the gavel for you.
Well, I'll tell you,
Don't break it.
this is a complete surprise, and I'm not sure I can do it.
If you need help, I'll be happy to help you.
Okay.
Oh, what we need to do is elect a secretary.
Right.
You want me to help you here? Nominate a secretary.
Okay.
Is there a nomination for secretary?
I nominate Stephanie Kurzenhauser.
I'll second that motion.
Been moved and seconded that we nominate Stephanie. Secretary, any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none? Let's move on to the budget presentation. Hey, I have one question before we even start. Because there's a letter from the city of Milwaukee about funding for Riverfront Park.
Correct.
Is that's outside of this budget, right? Or is it part of this budget?
That was submitted to us after the budget was prepared. We were just, that it was forwarded to us from the city of Milwaukee. We'll be addressing that in our presentation, just a letter in support of the Milwaukee Bay Park project.
Okay.
So it was just an additional item that was added, or it was provided to us and we simply passed along to the committee members.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. Okay, well, good morning, Chair Shook and North Clackamas Park and Rec District Budget Committee members. My name is Scott Archer. I'm the Director of the North Clackamas Park and Recreation District. Also with me here to my left is Liz Gomez. Liz is our Finance and Business Operations Manager, and she'll be assisting me with the presentation this morning. I'm pleased to present to you this morning the proposed budget for fiscal year 2018-19 in the amount of $46,091,052. Before I proceed, also I want to acknowledge we have a number of our North Clackamas Park and Rec District team are present, and those of you that are here could just give a wave or something. Of course, the budget preparation effort is a substantial one and requires input from lots of our team members, so they've all contributed greatly. The North Clackamas Park and Rec District is a service district of Clackamas County, and we are a division of the Business and Community Services Department. We're dedicated to providing exceptional park and recreation programs, facilities, and services in the northern urban portion of the county. The district serves over 100,000 residents and includes the city of Milwaukee and a large unincorporated area. The North Clackamas Park and Rec District, as noted on the slide here, does not utilize any of the county's general funds. We have our own dedicated tax base, a permanent rate of 53.82 cents per thousand of assessed value. That is projected to generate approximately $6 million, just under $6 million in this coming fiscal year. Of note on that permanent rate, as far as park and rec districts go in the state of Oregon, this continues to be among the lowest of park and rec districts of comparable size to NCPRD. For example, The Tualatin Hills Park and Rec District has a permanent rate of $1.31. The Bend Park and Rec District has a rate of $1.46, and the Willamette Lane Parks and Rec District in Springfield is at about $2. So we do operate lean and very efficiently with the resources that we have. The district's mission statement is to enrich community vitality and promote healthy living through parks and recreation. The North Clackamas Park and Rec District is a line of business within the Business Community Services Department. You've received, not you, the NCPRD member, but the BCC board members have received budget review of all of the other BCS divisions at this point. NCPRD's line of business is on the far right, and we'll be talking about those particular programs. I do want to note, it's important for the Budget Committee to note in our presentation this year that this is the first year that the district has based our budget around the Performance Clackamas model. We've utilized strategic planning, and we've based previous budgets around the concepts of the Performance Clackamas model, but we haven't actually implemented that model. And why that is significant is as we go through the presentation, I'm going to be talking about performance measurements, and those have been presented to you, I know, have been presented to the board members and other budget committee members. We do not have a baseline, so we'll be talking about projections for future performance measurements. So just something to note as we go forward.
Scott, I need to interrupt you a second. When you mention the district includes the city of Milwaukee and a large portion of unincorporated Clackamas County, correct?
Correct.
It also includes Happy Valley. And does this budget include tax revenue from Happy Valley?
It does not. That was actually going to be part of my presentation here in a minute, but I'll just go ahead and let you know. So we are, this proposed budget has been prepared with the assumption that Happy Valley has withdrawn. Now, there's still maybe some legal question around that, and we're still working through that, but we've prepared that to be safe on the assumption that we do not have the revenue from Happy Valley, and that results in about in an estimated $1.4 million reduction in our tax revenue. We've made that up, and we've balanced the budget for this year with some one-time expenditures and some savings. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about those as we go along, but those are going to include a reduction to the transfer to our capital repair and replacement fund, unfunded positions.
Scott, I think that
I'll add
the
to
administrator needs to
what
add
Mr.
something.
Archer said, so there's some benefit to the committee about the nature of this.
Thank you.
So a little bit of background. So, you know, in 2017, the city of Happy Valley took action to withdraw from the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. As of December 31st, 2017, just wanted to make sure you all are aware that we have been notified by the Oregon State Department of Revenue that it appears as if the withdrawal conducted by the city may have been done under the wrong statute. And so they have instructed our county assessor to this point that they don't recognize that the withdrawal has taken place. Obviously, this question is going to be one involving further discussion and possible litigation. Who knows? From this point, but in putting the budget together, we had made the assumption that the withdrawal was in effect as of December 31st. Depending on how this issue gets resolved. And like I say, right now, the State Department of Revenue is saying the withdrawal has not been gone into effect. We may be making a significant amendment to the budget following up after the course of this action sometime during the first quarter or maybe the second quarter of next year to make whatever corrections might be necessary at this time. But this budget assumes that the withdrawal was properly conducted. So just a little bit of extra information there.
So I'd like to add to that too. A properly conducted removal from the district would have required, according to the Revenue Department, first a boundary change and then a vote of the district, which is what I kind of thought normally would happen. So it's not a huge surprise, but the Revenue Department reversed their decision that they had made earlier. And we recently found out about this. So there's a lot of story here. Go ahead. Sorry to,
Did you want to ask your question before we moved on?
Yeah, so I just wanted to get clarification. Presuming, putting this discussion aside and just going off the budget document, the 1.4 million that, so to speak, we're foregoing, assuming the Happy Valley thing moves forward, which sounds like it's in question, is that representative of full-year tax income?
Yes, correct.
So the impact, just to clarify, the impact of the 54 cents with Happy Valley's withdrawal equates to 1.4 million for a full 12 months.
In this coming, yeah, that's the projected in this coming year, correct, yes.
So assuming that is accurate, is that a benefit or a liability, or is it a negative for the district as a whole? How is that healthy or is it not healthy for the district as it relates to the scenario in which, and I know I need to qualify this, in a scenario in which that the parks within the City of Happy Valley are maintained by the City of Happy Valley, is this a net benefit or a net loss as it relates to operations and maintenance?
Yeah, that's an excellent question and one that we're still working on understanding. What we've done is that we've balanced this year's budget with some one-time expenditures. We're not going to be able to do that forever. We have also identified some future savings and some future ways to balance the budget with that loss of revenue. However, until we've actually experienced the full cycle of a budget year, one thing that we need to understand is, so we'll have, as you're talking about, Commissioner Savas, the not having to maintain parks within Happy Valley, so there'll be reduced expenditures there. We'll also have a reduction of expenditures with regard to any programming effects that things that we do specifically with and for and around the Happy Valley residents. We also have a $250,000 payment that we previously made under our former intergovernmental agreement with Happy Valley. We just wrote a check every year for $250,000 plus an escalator cost that we are no longer making. So there's some things like that are savings. But the answer to your question, Mr. Savas, is that we won't really know the full impacts of the net either gain or loss of once we've adjusted the service levels, and we're going to be working through that. We're making estimates, of course, for budget reasons, but until we really experience that full annual cycle, it's going to be we're going to have the experience, and then we'll be able to make some adjustments in the coming budget cycles. I know that's not a great answer, but that's the best I can tell you right now that I know.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
All right.
Okay. So back to our regularly scheduled programming. Thanks for getting the elephant in the room out of the way early. I was going to hit that a little bit later, but we've got it out of the way. I was talking about the NCPRD being a line of business, and this is these are our actual programs. So NCPRD has 5 programs within the line of business. We have the Office of the Director, Recreation, Older Adult Services, Parks, Trails, and Natural Areas, and Asset Development. Within these 5 program areas, we operate the district's services, programs, facilities, et cetera. We manage over 660 acres of parks, trails, and natural areas. We have the Milwaukee Center that we operate, the North Clackamas Aquatic Park, and then we've recently acquired 3 new facilities with our strategic partnership with the school district, Concord, Clackamas, and Wichita Elementary Schools. And of course, we offer a wide variety of recreation programs and activities and special events, and we'll talk a little bit more about those. This chart shows the 3-year trend of revenues compared with expenses. Again, our current fiscal year is a a little over $46 million proposed budget. It's significant to note here the revenue column is on the left and the expenses are on the right, and those do not match up, and that's not because we don't have a balanced budget. This is just an illustrative example for you to show some comparisons, and this chart does not include our beginning fund balance or our contingencies. So it's to show the revenues without those sources if we didn't have our contingencies and our beginning fund balance. But of course, the actual budget document itself does match. This is a snapshot of our proposed budget sources by percentage. So on the resources on the left, or the revenues, the largest of those, the largest source of revenue is our fund balance, and that's beginning fund balance for all funds. You'll notice that our permanent rate generates is about 13% of our budget. So a significant portion of our budget are things besides our tax rate. We also have the 18% in this year for the land sale proceeds, which is from the Hoodview and the schools transaction. And then we have a number of other sources that make up that revenue. On the expenditure side on the right, the requirements, the largest of those by far is our capital. That equates to almost 62% by percentage of our total sources of requirements. And then we have all the other items in there, a couple of other of note. Our personnel, so our staffing is about 13% total. Materials and services just under 8%. 6% contingency, 6% transfers, and then a number of other smaller costs. This is a snapshot of the budget percentage by fund. The North Clackamas Park and Recreation District has 6 budgetary funds as shown here. The resources fund on the left, the revenues. The 2 biggest revenue sources we have are capital projects at just about 48%. And the general fund at about 40%. And then we have some, the 4 others make up the rest of that. On the right, the requirements by fund, the expenditures. The 3 biggest of those are our SDCs at 33%, capital projects at 26%, and the general fund at 23%. And then again, the rest make up the remaining percentages. This illustrates our changes in full-time equivalents over the current fiscal year, so last year to the proposed year, for full-time equivalent positions. And you'll note that from last year to this year, we are making a reduction of about 2 FTEs. Now, the decrease of these 2 FTEs is for unfunded positions in our Parks, Trails, and Natural Resources area. And then the other smaller adjustments are related to allocations between lines of business. But of importance here is the 2 positions that we're reducing are not filled. We are not laying anybody off. We're not reducing our actual personnel. We're just making an adjustment to the personnel in our budget. We had 2 positions in the current budget year that we chose not to fund based on the question around what our impacts were going to be for the Happy Valley withdrawal situation. We chose not to fill those this year, so we've left those unfunded and reduced our FTEs in the next budget year. As Mr. Krupp noted earlier, should anything change with that and we receive that revenue, we do have the opportunity, of course, to make budget amendments later. This slide illustrates the percentage of budget by the 5 lines of business. The largest by far, over 3 times more than the rest of the lines of business combined, is the asset development. And then we've got the rest of the lines of business that we'll be walking through as well. The first is the Office of the Director. The Office of the Director provides broad external and internal leadership and support for the entire district. It includes finance and business operations, marketing, community relations. And it's also important to note that this budget, this line of, or this program, houses our general fund administration, including transfers to support other programs. So this one is a little bit larger than some of the other program areas, simply because it is a conduit for some of our funds to other divisions. The total budget for the Office of the Director is a little over $5 million. And as I've noted to you previously, we're showing, as required, we're showing our performance measures here on these slides, but this is our first year of doing the performance measures in this manner, so we don't have, you'll see NA, non-applicable, or there won't be any information in prior years. We don't have the baseline information yet, but we are setting performance measurements for this year. We'll be measuring against those going forward. So in this particular program area, our performance measurements are focused on measuring and increasing social media impact for marketing and district financial management issues. Our recreation program. This includes the North Clackamas Aquatic Park, the sports programs, general recreation, special events, fitness, and those types of programs. The total budget for this program is about $4.2 million. And the performance measurements are focused on, in this one, are focused on increasing the number of programs and participation rates, and also surveying for satisfaction levels and setting some minimum satisfaction levels for the participants in our programs. Our older adult services program, this includes the operation of the Milwaukee Center, all of the services that we provide there, and it also includes the nutrition and transportation programs. The total budget request here is about $1.6 million. The performance measures are focused on our volunteer placement and our Meals on Wheels services delivery effectiveness. I should note here that we're measuring our, one of our measurements is our volunteer program at the center. We have a phenomenal volunteer program, as probably some of you or several of you know, that a very active volunteer program, and our staff there do a great job of working with our volunteers. So we're actually measuring volunteer participation rates. Parks, trails, and natural areas. This program provides operations, maintenance, and land stewardship for all of our parks, trails, natural areas, and open spaces. It doesn't identify it in the title, but this also includes our facility maintenance program. We've recently, this budget year, we've folded that into the umbrella of this program. The budget request here is about $2.2 million. Our performance measurements are focused on completion of our work orders and also our capital repair and replace program. The last of our program areas is asset development. As I mentioned to you previously, this is by far our largest by budget of the program areas. This program provides planning, development, and real estate services for all of our parks, trails, open spaces, natural areas, and in some cases, facilities. The total budget request here is about $33 million. This combines all of our capital funds, including system development charges and any other capital fund that we have. Our performance measurements are going to be based on percentage of growth for our parks, trails, and natural areas facilities, as well as percentage of planning projects completed. I do want to note a few highlights within the asset development area here. From the current budget year, we have initiated the Hidden Falls project. We've executed the Wichita Park project in Milwaukee. We have executed an agreement with Oak Lodge Water Services District for the Boardman Wetlands project. And we have initiated the process for the Milwaukee Bay Park Phase 3 project, the planning of that, and as Mr. Bernard noted earlier, we've received a letter of support on that project from the City of Milwaukee, from Mayor Gamba. I know we have a couple of our of our partners from Milwaukee here today that might be speaking to that under the public comment period as well. And then some initiatives for next year include our Concord site planning efforts in conjunction with working with our library team, completing the Milwaukee Bay Park design, and completing the Wichita Park project, and then we also will be implementing a number of other projects. We've already talked about our key performance measurements and results. This is the first year that we're implementing Performance Clackamas, and therefore the baseline is just being set. We do believe that with the measurements that we're establishing for this coming budget year, that we're going to have quantifiable and qualitative results for good decision-making in the future based around our strategic planning efforts. The emerging issues, we've already touched on most of these. The proposed budget is based on the assumption of the Happy Valley withdrawal, as has been discussed. That's an estimated $1.4 million reduction in revenue for the coming fiscal year. Again, I want to reiterate, for this year only, we have identified some one-time savings and some one-time expenditures that we are utilizing to balance the budget. We've made some, we've used some of our reductions, but the major items that we use to balance the budget are a reduction to our transfer to the Capital Repair and Replacement Fund, as well as the positions that were unfunded that I already mentioned, and then a reduction to our contingency. We don't believe that this one-time transfer of those funds or the utilization of those funds will harm our budget, but we certainly couldn't do this going forward, and we have identified, we're already working, Liz and I are working on a number of areas whereby we can create better efficiencies as well as look for reductions, reduced levels of service to Happy Valley that will result in some savings. The other two emerging issues are the acquisition of our 3 new facilities and their associated open spaces through our strategic partnership. One of the biggest transactions in the history of the district has occurred in this current fiscal year. We've acquired, of course, Clackamas, Wichita, and Concord Elementary Schools, and we believe that these facilities will provide us with tremendous additional opportunities for programs and recreational opportunities. And then lastly, our capital planning projects, as already mentioned, include a number of different things. Our master plan for the Concord Elementary site, Milwaukee Bay Park, Wichita Park, and Boardman Wetlands, among many others. I do need to note, before we hit our last slide here, I do need to note a couple of changes since we sent you your book. These are noted in the script for your adoption of the budget, but we have two adjustments that were made. One is that within Fund 283, that's our Zone 3 SDCs, somehow there was an error in inputting the administrative fees. We're assuming no longer that we'll be collecting SDC fees in Happy Valley, at least as of the moment. And so that input error was that we had budgeted for $82,584. We've adjusted that to $2,483. The other is we programmed $8 million for the land sale proceed from Hoodview programmed that into Fund 480, but we put that into the wrong line item. We inadvertently put that in, what did we put it in? The
land sale proceeds, and it should be beginning fund balance.
Yeah. So there's an adjustment. The money's still there. The $8 million from the proceeds is still there. We just had to move it to a different line item. And again, those are noted in your script for adoption. And so that concludes my presentation, and I'm prepared to answer any questions at this point.
You want me to call on these people? So first, Ken.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of questions, a couple of comments. In looking at your PowerPoint presentation under resources and requirements, that one, I just noted that so much of your budget is balanced as a result of fund balance.
Yeah.
And that's not sustainable in the long run, so, but you have commented that you are working on how you'll adjust to that reality,
Correct.
I guess, regardless of what happens, if, when, or however Happy Valley does or doesn't stay and go.
Yes.
But I just point out that that does not appear sustainable in the long run without significant adjustments.
That is correct.
You commented on volunteers. How is the recruitment on that? I noticed with, for instance, Meals on Wheels, which I've done a couple of times. I know Commissioner Bernard has done that. It's pretty dependent upon mostly senior citizens that are driving to other senior citizens to help them out. How is your recruitment for those kinds of activities?
How is it in terms of the success rate, or do we have?
Are you having any trouble recruiting people?
For the most part, I think we have a significant interest and participation rate in that. Marty Hanley, who's here in the room today, our center manager, and his staff do a really great job of just continuing to reach out. So there's always a need, I think, for more, but we've been very fortunate. The staff at the center have just developed a phenomenal continued kind of outreach program with our volunteerism effort. So it's always going to be a challenge to find enough volunteers, but we've managed to do pretty well at the center. I think it's just an area that people feel very passionate about, that it really helps one of the most vulnerable populations, and people feel really, I think, good about serving that in that capacity.
It's going to be difficult for you to complete your mission without those volunteers.
Absolutely. We couldn't do it without, yeah.
I just want to iterate that, and I know you've heard these discussions before, but for the benefit of the public, we know that the Oak Grove Jennings Lodge area is an underserved area, and as you go forward with your asset planning and whatnot like that, I think it's critically important, again, regardless of what happens with Happy Valley, that that area be looked at seriously as to how we can provide additional services there.
And to that, we are, thank you for that comment. We are, I would say at this point, we are very actively pursuing opportunities for additional park and open space lands within that part of the district. So we absolutely agree, and we're focused on that effort.
And then on a positive note, I went in reading through your presentation in the primary budget document, on page 3, to anybody who has that primary budget document, I just want to draw your attention to the current year activity highlights, and I will not read them all, but you guys should be commended for the work that you have done over the year. There is a lot of accomplishments there in spite of the turmoil regarding Happy Valley and all of that. So I just wanted to compliment you on that. With the small amount of staff and the large amount of volunteers you have, you've done a yeoman's job, so it's really much appreciated.
Credit to our great staff. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, and that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
So next question was me, and then Martha, then Sonia. Mine was, we received a letter, which is public, from Happy Valley saying that they don't want the parks they have in Happy Valley, but they expect us to maintain them. So my question is, have you looked at the specific parks, how they were purchased, and could they be sold? And secondly, if they can't, what would the cost be to Happy Valley to maintain those parks? Have you looked at that too? And by the way, I probably wouldn't spend a lot of time on it yet, because a lot has to happen before we actually have to address that question.
Yeah.
But have you done that?
Yes, we're looking at all of those issues, any deed restrictions on properties, the cost of us maintaining those. It's been quite a moving target, so as you say, we have, maybe don't spend too much time, because just as we start digging in, it seems that the target changes a little bit. So, but you're correct. They've indicated that they don't, until the division of assets is resolved, they don't want to take on the maintenance. And so we're stuck with the decision of either maintaining or not our owned assets that are within the city limits that we may not be receiving revenue beginning July 1. And that's a challenge. But we are very much, we're in the process of looking at what those actual costs are.
Commissioner Schrader?
Well, I think you already answered one, and that is that Happy Valley is still responsible for the debt service to the Aquatic Center. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and what's the numbers on that?
Um,
How much are they going to have to?
I think we're 2.2. Yeah, it's just a little over $2 million of outstanding balance, and that is for us. That's a payment annually of about $500,000 a year out of our operating budget, and that is one of, as I said, we're looking at ways to make savings going forward. Should we have this reduction, that's one of the areas that we're targeting, is whether to pay that debt off. But yes, Happy Valley is attached to a proportional percentage of that debt
Right,
still.
whether they're in or out of the district, that's where that
Correct.
goes. So my other question is, I know that we're in processes dealing with park maintenance, but we still own the parks within the city limits. I want to clarify that. Since we still own them, however, are we subject to city codes and?
Correct.
Okay, so in other words, we may own it, but we can definitely be limited because they're within city limits of what we choose to do, should we choose to do more things like affordable housing. Because Happy Valley has had issues, actually serious issues in the past with the local or housing affordability community for not actually meeting, Paul will know this, that the goal, what's the goal for affordable housing or in the state
Our 4-to-1
land use?
replacement?
Pardon me?
Our 4-to-1 replacement?
No, I'm talking about land use. You know, the land use goals that we have. And I think equitable housing and affordability and community building is one of those goals.
2,000 units by 2020? Is that
No,
what you're talking
no,
about?
I'm talking about state land use law, so never mind, I'll just look up the goal myself. But they've been dinged for not meeting that goal, and part of that.
Goal 10.
Goal 10, thank you. And what was that goal again? Can you?
Basically, the cities have responsibility
Okay.
for affordable housing, not the counties. So it's incumbent upon the cities to plan and assess the affordable housing needs and basically serve it.
And there have been issues with Happy Valley, and some of the affordable housing entities have been very, very unhappy with their performance. And it had occurred to me that perhaps we could help that along should we own the property, but I suspect there would be real difficulty in working with their permitting, their land use process.
Are you suggesting we turn those parks into affordable housing units?
I think that is certainly, since there's an extreme lack of what's necessary out there, I certainly wouldn't be opposed to it, but it would be another discussion with all of us as a group. So it's not really germane to this, but I'm just pointing that out. But I do want the rest of the public to know that essentially we are potentially maintaining parks within an area that have left the district, and we actually started and we actually developed those parks because they were part of the Parks District at the time. So it seems a little cattywampus to me that now there seems to be a fairness and equitability issue here. So anyway, that was my comment. Thanks.
Commissioner Salas?
Yeah, so just one minor, I think staff's response was relatively correct, and Martha's follow-up statement was relatively correct, but there is an exception that actually applies, and that is that I believe Happy Valley Park is still owned by Happy Valley, so that's
Right.
still a property.
No, the Happy Valley Park is owned by Happy Valley, but
The remainder
I'm
of the
talking about the
parks-
other parks that are not.
Right, the remainder of the
Okay,
parks are
yeah.
owned by the district, and not unlike, I believe Milwaukee Bay Park is also owned by the city of Milwaukee as well, so, but I'm going to struggle through all this. I'm not sure, probably with the next 30 days here, or less than 30 days, this budget could look different because of how the DOR rules on this. And if that is indeed the case, my words of caution here are that this is a district. And I think we get broken down into the provincialism, so to speak, that this is Happy Valley or this is Milwaukee. We move forward with a new master plan that included Happy Valley, which was never adopted. So we're still operating on the original master plan. And there are areas that are underserved, that are areas that are severely underserved. So mind you that the area there are areas that are severely underserved. The Jennings Lodge, Oak Grove area have those severe underserved designations, as well as a part, I believe, of the Milwaukee UGMA also has a little spot or two that has a little shaded area that's severely underserved. All that said, I think that my issue as a special districts person has been that districts are districts to serve the people within the district. It's not, and the cities have sometimes, often, no disrespect, and I'm not conveying any disrespect or anything, but we got to remember that this is about the people that live in the district, and there should be some equitable representation, balanced representation, and we ought to be thinking in the guise of the district and the people we're serving within there, not so much where our boundaries are city or not city. And some of this is very complex, and knowing the uncertainty about all of this, I'm just apprehensive about even the capital plan, because the DAB has been inactive for a considerable period of time. One of our members is here, who sits on the DAB, and yet we've made a lot of planning and capital planning and so forth that's embedded in here with even more uncertainty as of today, not knowing exactly whether or not Happy Valley is going to be in or not in. All that to say that I'll just stop there, but I'm just hoping that we can just again realize that we're trying to serve the people. I believe right now was it 120?
About 122.
122,000 people.
And without Happy Valley, it's about 103,000. So we're very much a significant district. Even without Happy Valley, we would be still the second largest park and rec district in the state of Oregon.
Right. And if you subtract out the population of Happy Valley and subtract out the population of Milwaukee, that leaves about 80,000 people of unincorporated that don't seem to have as much of a representation on the advisory board that ought to be there, frankly.
Plus 5, because there were 5 born while you were talking.
If I might just reply to that, just one part of that, regarding the capital planning that is in this proposed budget, I would just note, the DAB, our District Advisory Board, has been essentially on hiatus while we've sorted out this Happy Valley issue. But the capital planning really is based on the capital improvement plan from years past that's just been essentially carried forward until the projects have kind of landed in the queue or what have you. So I think most or all of them have been vetted for quite some time, if that offers any comfort level. And again, our budget is based on the conservative approach of we don't have the revenue from Happy Valley, but if that changes, then we'll make those amendments or those adjustments in the budget. So I think we've taken a safe route on the budget prep.
Commissioner Albertson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just comment that budgets are always preliminary documents and never a finished document till the end of the year, so it's always a moving target. This one just a little more so than most. So hopefully this mess with Happy Valley will get ironed out in a productive way, and I'll just leave it at that.
Commissioner Fisher.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. You answered most of my questions. I'm just curious, so when we get all of the information from Happy Valley, what is the process? How does that all become legitimized? Do we pull together the district board of the commissioners? Are we going to expand the board? I mean, what's our process from here? Because there are uncertainties, and I appreciate what Commissioner Savas said and what Commissioner Humberson said. I'm just curious our process.
Well, I would love if one of our county council representatives were sitting on this side of me. I've got the finance person here. I would love for that question to have our county council here, because I think I'd probably defer to some of that, legal process that's going to be happening. So all I can tell you is that we'll be working closely with the board and working through those issues as we move forward. Things are moving quickly, and we'll be back and having conversations. I wish I were able to give you better information, but I think our county council would be best to answer the meat of what you're asking there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Archer. Appreciate it very much. We will now open public hearing, receive public testimony. Anyone wishing to testify should begin by giving their name and address for the record. Yes.
For the record, my name is Grover Jeffrey Bornefeld, and I live in Jennings Lodge. And I want to start by, one, acknowledging the progress that has been made over the last few years. I so much appreciate the shift in inclusion that is trending. So with that as a background, I want to speak to, I appreciate how people can now advocate for their area, their needs, and it's being listened to in a way that it wasn't listened to before. So for that, again, thank you. What I am concerned about, and I've heard it mentioned already now, is that the distribution has not been representative as far as who gets to speak and who has things to say. While I appreciate the hard work and have attended several DAB meetings, Lynn Fisher is one of the hardest working guys I know, so it isn't there is a lack of work, it is a lack of even distribution. I'm on the Jennings Lodge CPO board, and we have yet to have any representation other than Lynn coming down on a request that represents our specific area that is part of that. So in the moving forward of the selection of the district advisory board or however it gets done, I highly recommend that we tie it, I don't want to use map it necessarily as a, but where there are specifics tied to the CPOs. Our CPO meets every month. The Oak Lodge CPO meets every month, and we don't have representation through that. Whereas I appreciate that the City Council of Milwaukee, and I love what they're doing with so many things they're doing, but they have a representative that actually represents them on the DAB. So it's something to move forward and shift.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yes, sir.
I'm trying to make sure I understand where you're going with this. Are you saying having CPOs represented on the DAB?
Having a tie to, we have never received, other than the generosity of Lynn, heard anything from the DAB specifically reporting to or having someone from our, like I represent our CPO and several library functions, besides being on the library board, that's a different issue. So having a direct correlation so that we have this population a chance to get the words in, get the comments in both directions so that our communities can be kept informed.
I'm sorry I interrupted. Thank you.
Oh, please, that's quite all right. I have to start over again. So hi, my name. But I also want to talk about, and I did it in the last DAB meeting I attended, I appreciated the conversation about reconsidering, which I think was a very unfair decision where the SDCs were stayed in their initial service areas, as opposed to, as it's been spoken, we are a district. And so when you look at the comprehensive plan, our area where I live is the most, and it's been that way since 2001, and it was already talking about it was remarkably underserved then, and it has not improved significantly. So that we look at how the money gets distributed, it's great Happy Valley grew, and it's great that Milwaukee's getting a great spurt of growth, but it is a district-wide, and we have significant parts of our district. If you look at where the tax money comes, 2/3 of that tax money comes from unincorporated residents. And yet, it all goes towards the maintenance, and we don't have the vast majority of the stuff that is being maintained. Yes, we have the right to use it, but it's not in our local area. So I did appreciate your comments in that regard, and yours as well, So I just want to speak to the importance of going forward and continuing this inclusion and having people have a voice in the process. Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak? Young lady in blue?
Chair, can I just comment before the next speaker comes up, and that is that, and I believe what Mr. Bornefeld was trying to say, because we've had this conversation at the last CPO meeting, in Jenny's Lodge is that Mr. Fisher here has done a great job of speaking to the Oak Grove Community Council and conveying some of the things that are going on. That part has been missing from the Jenny's Lodge aspect of that. So we haven't had the Jenny's Lodge DAB member actively engaged with the CPO. That's what he was trying to convey. So kudos to Lynn, but that still leaves a little bit of a vacuum, so to speak, in the Jenny's Lodge area specifically.
Go for it.
Good morning. My name is Kelly Brooks. I'm the Assistant City Manager for Milwaukee. Our address is 10722 Southeast Main Street in downtown Milwaukee. And Chair Shuck, members of the committee, I'm really here today for one primary reason, and that is to support the funding that's included within NCPRD's budget for Milwaukee Bay Park. It's been great to hear the conversations about a district and district-wide amenities. We feel strongly that Milwaukee Bay Park is such an amenity. It's 8.5 acres nestled right between Kellogg and Johnson Creek, right in downtown Milwaukee. In 2015, thanks to the efforts of many of the folks in this room, we actually opened phase 2 of that park, which made improvements to the dock and the beach area. It helped connect the trolley trail through the park, but there's a lot of work yet to be done. And that next phase, the phase 3, is what's the final design will be funded with these resources. And that will build a rest area, which is much needed there for the folks that like to visit, a play area for all the kids, and an interactive play space and fountain beyond that as well, in addition to other amenities. The reason why I'm up here, I want to quickly recognize the fact that Councilor Parks is sitting back there, who's a far more eloquent and passionate advocate for this project than me. But the county has snatched her up in many of these budget processes. I believe she was just elected as chair of the General Fund Budget Committee, so you get to listen to me instead of Councilor Parks today. But she is in the room because this is a top priority for City Council to complete Phase 3. And we just would not. We've had a really remarkable partnership with NCPRD. I am relatively new to the city and new to this project, but in spirit of that partnership, the city's budget, which we expect to be adopted tomorrow night, includes $250,000 for our budget to help complete design as well. In your packet, as was mentioned by Scott, you do have a letter from our mayor that echoes these same comments of partnership and commitment to this project. And I also just want to thank you all for your continued support and for NCPRD's work with us to make this a reality. Thank you.
I have a question.
Okay.
The 250 is only for the planning and design.
Exactly.
Because there have been other requests for the funding of the project. And that 250 is not in the budget right now, correct? Okay.
Oh, so the 100. Oh, just for Scott.
It's in 150 from us.
Yeah.
250 from them.
Yeah, 250 from us,
us.
150 in the
And the
NCPRD
150
budget.
is in the budget?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that's all.
correct. So we've put our portion in for the planning efforts, and then the city has added to that. So we need to work out how exactly the spending happens there, but that 250 for Milwaukee is in their budget.
It's in our budget, the city's budget. But you raise an important point, Chair Bernard, which is that this is completing design, that there will be additional funding, significant funding that's needed to complete construction of this project.
Thank
Any
you.
questions? Thanks.
Are there anybody else that would like to make a comment or presentation? If not, we will close the public hearing, and we'll ask the committee members if they have any questions or discussions. Anybody have any comments or so? We will call for a motion to approve the budget.
The North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District 2018-2019 budget shall be amended within Fund 283 SDC Zone 3 to revise the administration fees line item from $82,584 to $2,483. Total requirements remain the same. The North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District 2018-2019 budget shall be amended within Fund 480, Capital Projects Program 00, to revise the beginning fund balance line item from 0 to $8 million, and land sale proceeds line item from $8 million to 0. Total revenues remain the same. I move that the committee approve the 2018-2019 budget in the amount of $46,091,052 for North Clackamas Park and Recreation Division as amended, and impose the maximum permanent tax rate of $0.5382 per thousand of assessed value within district boundaries.
I second the motion.
Can we have a vote on that?
All those in favor?
All those,
Aye.
all those opposed? Hearing none, the budget passes. Are we done?
We're done.
All right, thank you very much for your patience with me.